Hi, this is Ken with VOD TV. We're with Roy Perry of Alarm.com. We're at the Smart Energy Summit. Roy, for a long time in your previous effort and still today with Alarm.com, you're advocating for creating kind of a national market, a market of demand response. Maybe you can talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, so third parties like Alarm.com are beginning to offer energy management services by virtue of putting in monitoring systems and thermostats into homes that allow us to provide control and convenience for consumers to be able to manage their energy use. And so we feel that we have probably over 100,000 thermostats under management now. We feel that we ought to be able to add some value to the demand response capability by controlling our thermostats during a peak event. And there's other players that are going to be able to do that as well. We've seen a number of companies like ADT or Verizon or even GE that's putting energy management capabilities out into the home, and they want to participate in demand response. The problem is that there's over 2,000 utilities, and there's no way that any given service provider, energy management provider, is going to be able to do deals with 2,000 separate utilities.
Right.
And the converse of that is these 2,000 utilities probably don't want to do deals with dozens of different energy management providers out there. So what's needed is some sort of national market, some clearinghouse, so that if I launch a energy management product or service like excuse me, like if Best Buy does or somebody else, that they can be assured that it'll work with whichever utility that consumer has. And so that requires probably long term some pretty rich and robust standards. But I believe in the short term we can get a long way down the road by having a common way for utilities to post grid status on the web. If they just a simple way of saying that for an API to go query, say what's the status of my home on the grid. If it goes from green to yellow, then I can take some sort of action to lower my thermostat or whatnot, independent of which utility I have. And the second thing is if there was a way to read the meter directly, no matter which utility I had, if there was some sort of standard way to do that, then a third-party application provider like us can write all sorts of great demand response applications, what I call autonomous demand response, and which will accrue a lot of the value back to the utility without any investment on their part in AMI or smart meters or any other smart grid quote-unquote capabilities.
So with the first part of that comment about getting the utilities to provide their status of, hey, we've got a problem with the grid today, do something about it. What is it going to take to get the utilities providing that information?
Well, some of them already do. Like Southern California Edison, let me give you an example. Southern California Edison has what they call Power Saver Day, and they actually send out an alert via a text or an email or even a phone call to you saying, hey, tomorrow is a Power Saver Day. Would you please participate? And if that particular customer just goes and manually turns their thermostat down, they can get paid for that at basically 75 cents per kilowatt hour shed. Yeah. So there are some very simple ways to do this. I mean, another way is to just put it on the website and say tomorrow is a Power Saver Day. And so we've seen some pretty simple models that could be extrapolated across all of the utilities in the U.S. It wouldn't take much for every utility to set up a web page like that simply provided grid status on the next day basis.
And it could be notified via Facebook or whatever the social media outlet is, I suppose.
Sure. I mean, that's pretty straightforward these days.
So to your second point about kind of the self-demand response, if you will, gathering that information, do you see your companies such as yourself working with some of these devices that may be out there to read meters and so forth and provide that information to the customer?
Well, there's going to be a lot of sources of usage data. There's companies like Blue Line Innovations that have an adapter for your meter. There's CT clamps that you could put on, or plug level kind of usage meters. So there's a number of different ways to collect the data. The problem is that they come at an incremental cost to either the consumer or the service provider like us. And the ideal way to do it at no cost would be just to read the meter directly. And And if Zigbee provided a capability to read the meter, then we could basically have perfectly accurate data from the meter, unlike an aftermarket device where there might be some sort of question as to whether the data is consistent between the aftermarket device and the meter. There's some challenges there in getting access to meter data directly from a regulatory and kind of a business standpoint,
right.
because utilities are very safeguarded in protecting that data.
Well, do you see then like the Green Button Initiative as being something positive to help in that way?
Yeah, it's a big step forward. Definitely, it provides a way for any party to get access to that data that has the consumer's permission. The problem with Green Button is it doesn't go far enough. It gives you data on a next day basis, 15-minute intervals, and that's great if you're looking at kind of aggregate consumption. But if you're trying to change behavior or you're trying to take real-time responses, you need to have a real-time data feed. And so Green Button is not going to be able to provide that. We still need to get access to the meter or use some sort of aftermarket product to get real-time data so that the user can get a real-time view into what they're using. I brought up the point in one of the sessions that there's a difference between measuring kilowatt hours and kilowatts. Kilowatt hours is your odometer, and kilowatts is your speedometer. And it's useful to know how fast you're going at any point in time, so you don't drive off the road. But
Right.
but without that kind of a real-time visibility, it's going to be hard for consumers' behaviors to change, we believe.
So what's the step forward as far as the visibility and making this, bringing it to the next level?
I think that a couple of things. One is to create this kind of clearinghouse, if you will, or kind of a common way. Not an intense standards effort that's going to take years to complete, but just a simple definition of an API to get grid status and a simple way to read the meters. So if we could do that, we could literally, have created a market within the next few months for third parties to come in and make some investments. One of the big problems is that it's private investors are not, going to pour money into this market until they see the ability to have a national market that they can get to, not just, utility by utility.
So does this need to be like another nonprofit or some kind of alliance type thing, or is it a government mandated thing?
That's a great question, because not only is it need to be a clearinghouse of data, but it also needs to be a clearinghouse for money. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the value that's being generated by consumer energy management systems can flow to the utility.
Sure.
In terms of shedding load during a peak, but also reducing overall usage, energy efficiency. We need to figure out a way for the money to flow from the utility to the consumer. California has an initiative where they're subsidizing thermostats in the same way that a lot of states have subsidized CFL, compact fluorescent lights. You go into the Home Depot or Best Buy and you can buy that CFL for the same price as a 60-watt incandescent light bulb, right, because it's subsidized. We could see the same model where the utility could add money to the equation by subsidizing thermostats, for example. And we've seen that in California. I think there's a $125 subsidy that's coming down for thermostats, for programmable communicating thermostats. So I think that's what's really required. Those kinds of programs, that are forced upon the utility by the regulators, are necessary, but unfortunate. It would be great if the utilities did this without being mandated to, and saw the value of subsidizing energy management systems in the home, because then they could have smarter homes, and if they have smarter homes, energy management is a lot easier to achieve.
Roy, I appreciate your time as always, and
thank you, Ken.
very much.